I'm an alligator. I'm a mama, papa calling for you. I'm a space invader. I'll be a rock and roller bitch for you. Keep your mouth shut. You're squawking like a big monkey bird, and I'm busting up my brain for the world. No, I am. Keep your electric eye on me, babe. Put your right gun to my head. Press your space close to my love. Freak out in the moonlight daydream. Oh yeah. Don't fake it, baby. Lay the real thing on me. You know the church of man love. Such a holy place to be. Don't fake it, baby. Make me know you really care. Make the jump into the air.
The shutters lifted, reaching Temple's building, high on Poacher's Hill, and red, mutant eyes gazed down on Hunger City. No more big wheels. Fleas the size of rats sucked on rats the size of cats, and 10,000 peopleoids split into small tribes, coveting the highest of the sterile skyscrapers like packs of dogs assaulting the glass fronts of Lovney Avenue, ripping and re-wrapping Lincoln's shiny silver fronts, now legworms, family badge of sapphire and cracked emerald. Any day now, the gear of the diamond dogs.
Ladies and gentlemen, warm-blooded ones, welcome to the Count Mozart Show, and here is your vampire extraordinaire and the only immortal host in the world, Count Mozart.
Guten Nacht. I am Count Mozart, your vampire host extraordinaire, and the only immortal host in the world, introducing the bold, the beautiful, the beguiling and the bewitching Bela.
Hello everybody.
Ciao, Bella.
Hello Count.
Bella, I am the DJ, I am what I play.
David Bowie.
David Bowie, the boy from Brixton, the thin white duke, Ziggy Stardust, David Jones, David Bowie. Here we go. Here we go. You know, Bella, Count Mozart has a real affinity for David Bowie.
Why is
I
that?
mean, well, you take a look. I mean, look right behind you. This alter ego of his, and he was so artistic, so over the top, so flamboyant, so, you know what? I love this David Bowie. Everything about him.
It's one of a kind.
He is one of a kind. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to celebrate the thin white duke, David Bowie. We're going to get into him tonight like you wouldn't believe. We're going to make Iman proud. We're going to make his daughter proud. We're going to make his fans proud. You know what? This is the Count Mozart Show. Welcome to the David Bowie episode. Bella, I don't know where you want to start, but I just want to start by saying this, he was a gift from God. He had, you know, his family, he came from this suburb of, it was called Brixton in England. And it was, you know, he had a rough go growing up, a very cold kind of upbringing. You know, there was some issues with the family, including schizophrenia and things like this. We'll get into it a little bit with his brother Terry, who's half brother really, who's really close to. But you know, his dad even had a go at the at showbiz and you know that kind of thing. So he was happy for David.
Oh, yeah, I think he got great support from his father.
David Jones, and you know he just to let the people of the world know, you know, David, it wasn't easy for him. You know, he had a lot of fits and starts, so to speak. You know, it was not easy. You know, he had many bands, he had many starts with the music, and they failed.
Yes, I think he went through a lot before he actually hit
Went through a lot.
fame.
Even with those beautiful eyes of his. You know what? He had a friend. Yeah, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, he doesn't have two different colored eyes. I don't know if you know this. He has a dilated pupil, really. And why, Bella? His friend punched him in the face. Punched him in the eye. Not, but, you know, they were fighting over a girl. But he was a little kid. He punched him in the face and accidentally really messed him up. He had to go to the hospital. And then, boom, his eye stayed that way.
Right.
Although David prided himself on being a maverick, he was just like many boys when it came to the opposite sex. A crush on a girl named Carol led to a brawl with his best friend.
My fist and his face made contact, should we say. Unfortunately, caused a bit of damage to his eye, and that was not the intention at all.
David was rushed to the hospital, where doctors feared he might lose the sight in his left eye. It took 3 operations to repair the damage. Though surgeons were able to prevent blindness, David's pupil remained permanently dilated. As a result, he appeared to have eyes that were different colors.
Later on, David said to me, I did him a favour. So, I mean, a lot of people think it's quite an interesting thing to have 2 different coloured eyes.
I had like a dilated pupil.
Yeah, they thought,
Right.
you know, people thought there was 2 different colors.
Right, no, but that's what happened to him. And actually, something happened in 2004. He was in a concert, and somebody threw a lollipop and landed right into his eye.
Yeah, let's do that again all fucking right. Where are you, creep? Yeah, I guess it's easier to get lost in the crowd, you bastard. Do remember, I've only got one anyway. Fortunately, that's the one that works. So I found you. The other one has just become a little more decorative than it was before. Please keep your affection to yourself.
Oh, no. And it's stuck in his eye?
Yes.
A lollipop?
A lollipop.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Something about his eye.
Yeah, that was in Norway, I think.
Yeah, beautiful eyes.
Yes.
You know, he was so talented. He was a talented artist, of course. Always reinventing. You know, I hate that word almost, you know, reinventing. You know what he was? He was just experimenting. He was a winner. He was an artistic winner. Reinvention? No, it's who he was.
Right.
I get the term, but this man, he was something else.
It was always like a new look after, a while.
That's right. I mean, if you look at those early pictures, he almost looks like the guy from The Who. You know, Roger Daltrey had that curly hair, that kind of stuff, and then that got changed. But he started off, and he was in all these kind of groups, and it just wasn't working. But, there was something about him that, it's energy, right? And David had this energy.
Yes.
I'll skip a little bit ahead with people like Angie, his ex-wife, who is still alive, by the way.
Oh, really?
I think she's only like 74. By the way, this is 2025 if you're watching it in any other year. But as of this year, I think she's only 74 years old. She was very young. Wow. Yeah, she was working, she was starting to get involved. Yeah, she was a singer, but she was also involved with the, the music companies, and she helped, propel David.
And they have a child together, right?
Yes, they do.
They had
He started off as Zoe, and then it changed his name to Joey, I think.
Right.
Maybe even change it again. I'm not really sure about that. But they have a child together, and she's still alive. But she was very instrumental in him changing his persona about the flamboyancy of the androgyny.
Right.
David was okay, but he was there was threesome, and you know how trios are. He was kind of keeping the songs together and singing his part, but it was good. They were interesting. Weren't that exciting, to look at yet. The thing about it is that the first show or the second show was just so boring. And it really was just as boring as it could be. And the songs were great. So after the show, I said to them, guys, I think it would be totally it really would be cool if we tried to get a little more theatrical. I mean, you know David. I mean, you worked with Lindsay Camp. You danced with Hermione. You have a good theatrical. And I was making it sound like it was all my fault, so David could stay butch. This was Dumb Angie. Dumb Angie wants the show to look nice. They've got to get all dressed up and have lights, because Dumb Angie is bored with a bunch of musicians, right? Works, good cop, bad cop. David was, well, I don't know, Angie. That's an idea, though. Looking at the boys from Yorkshire, and the boys are looking at me, and I'm going, listen, guys, it'll be cool. It'll really be cool. You don't have to wear anything you don't want to. You don't have to dress up any way you don't want to. You have to choose how you want to look. If you don't make the choice, I'll make it for you.
She was like the fifth member of the band, I would say. She was there for everything. She had so much energy, it was just unbelievable. I mean, this is a woman who organised everything. She organised all the stage clothes, she organised the making of things, she organised Bowie.
Of looking like a woman and dressing, putting on dresses. This was very avant-garde back then, ladies and gentlemen. It really, it got him a lot of publicity.
I'm sure.
That's what it was all about, some people say he's a champion for gay and gay rights, but for the most part, a lot of it was,
for publicity,
you got
right?
it. He's a very smart man.
Yes.
And, but let's move a little bit ahead. So, one of the first songs he put out was that Space Oddity song.
Oh, yes.
Which, even, think about it, though. Even at the time, a lot of people, they didn't, especially in England. England, the UK, that's a very tough audience, by the way.
Right.
They've seen it all. He was inspired by, of course, who wasn't, the Beatles and things like, even Elvis. And he loved the blues and all that kind of stuff. This David was. But, he had his own way, of course. A very artistic guy, So, but this song, the Space Oddity song, talk about the perfect moment. It was around 69. And they released it. What happened?
When the man went to the moon.
That's right. And so they played it like crazy in the UK, and then it dropped off the charts. It kind of disappeared. Like they're very fickle over there.
But do you know they played that song, Space Oddity, when the inside of the Tesla, when Elon Musk launched it into space.
That's right. So
they play his song.
Take a look at that. Yeah, they put that car up there, and then they put the guy, and they even called the guy Spaceman.
Yeah,
Spaceman.
Yes,
What a wonderful guy.
I know.
And you know what? And then, where we're going, and there's the picture of him back there. He does this alter ego thing, and Count Mozart kind of knows where that came from, because, look. Even that woman, Angie, who later became his wife, like you said, when they presented it to the band, he had a band. He had this group of guys with him. And, he had to go and drive around and do shows. He was a real, musician, working musician. It wasn't like, he was a superstar. No, folks. He had to work it, Had a manager and all that kind of stuff. He got all that. But, he still had to work it. And so when they started doing the flamboyant thing, by her suggestion, sometimes she would say, you guys are playing a little boring in a way. You need to be a little bit more, flamboyant. So they started putting on all this stuff, and boom. That's where his alter ego finally came from. This Ziggy Stardust, ladies and gentlemen. The spiders from Mars, you know what I mean? Right. And this, you know what I'm talking about with the Ziggy Stardust?
Of course.
He became, and how that happens is, he was a little nervous when he played, but when he had his guys near him and he had persona, then he was comfortable, and he took on the stage like a champion.
Yes, he did.
But the Ziggy Stardust, he got that name. He looked, he was looking out the window. They were traveling somewhere, and he saw some shop had the name Ziggy something. And he named it that, and he wrote the whole thing in the song, and then it's almost like it's almost like an opera. You know what I mean? This guy was brilliant. But what's funny about that is you always see the very famous and so memorable photo of him with the lightning bolt.
Right.
But he never wore that on stage. Oh. You never saw Ziggy Stardust. It was a disc. Right. He had some disc on his on his forehead, and that when he did Ziggy Stardust, that's what he had. That was for the album.
Right.
So that was like an album cover, and kind of that's all that was. But he never wore it on stage. I bet you a lot of people don't know that.
Right, and do you know that they wanted to do that symbol and put it where he was born, make it like a big,
Lightning bolt?
Lightning bulb. And I think it's supposed to cost like $1 million.
Oh, they were going to do so this was going to be like a monument towards David.
Yeah, in his hometown where he was born.
Yeah.
And then they only raised $60,000.
Oh,
they were unable to.
They couldn't come up with $1 million for David Bowie?
For him, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's not so good.
Yeah.
Well, he took off with this character, and then it took off, right? And then he changed managers, and he had this guy DeFreeze, Tony DeFreeze. He sounds like a real. It sounds like a guy who you buy your car from, right? Tony DeFreeze, and he signed with RCA, and he's starting to move, but not yet, ladies and gentlemen. And they do this tour, and this DeFreeze. As much as some documentaries that you're going to watch put this guy down because he did, he's a manager. That's what they do. They're snakes. They always get the lion's share of the money and the artist always pays. In fact, Bella, I don't know if you know this, but when artists or bands or groups or whatever, and when they go out there and they're starting and they're with a record company, the record company pays them to stay at the Waldorf Astoria or buys them a steak dinner. Guess what? They got to pay that back.
Right.
Those are called advances, ladies and gentlemen. They get these advances, but the artist always has to pay that back. So what this DeFreeze did, in a way, it was really good what he did. Right?
In a way.
You got it. Because they're creating this, ladies and gentlemen, it's called perception. And David Bowie with the Ziggy Stardust alter ego, that persona, that character, there was nothing going on. So DeFreeze kept getting money from RCA, which is good for him.
Right.
And they went on this tour and, in America, and they stayed at all the finest places. In other words, they gave the perception
that they were big.
You got it. Big rock stars. And they weren't.
Not at the time yet.
Not at the time. And he'd always say, hey, look, we're playing this 200-seater. Guess what? Next door, there's like a 10,000-seater. He said, you're going to be playing that by the end of the year. And he was right.
Wow.
So he did some good things for them, but he's your typical snake in the grass manager, right? So, of course, the Ziggy Stardust was a phenomenon. It was at the right place at the right time again. I always say that in these episodes, but it's the way the world is, ladies and gentlemen. And, this Ziggy Stardust really captured the minds of the youth who, and by the way, that started the glam rock thing. Right. I mean, there was another guy over there, and T-Rex, that kind of thing. But David was, come on, look at him.
Yeah, how long did he last as a
Just a couple of years. And then he killed it. He killed the character. You know what I mean? Because it was, he knew it was enough.
He wanted to reinvent himself again.
There's that word again. But yes, he was just a creative guy.
Right.
And he's like, well, I can't be stuck as the stupid character all my life. You know what I mean? And it's like, then it's going to be a joke.
Right.
But he's not a joke. And he moved on. And then, of course, he got really heavily into cocaine. He was,
Yes.
Oh, we're not stopped. Is there anything behind us? But no.
Like every, pretty much every.
That's the way it was back then.
Artists, they were drugs.
But like the guy who designed this beautiful microphone for Count Mozart, with who was there when John Lennon died. Right. He was one of the last people to ever see him alive. Imagine that. And I have the microphone of the man who was one of the last people to see John Lennon alive. This death of John Lennon had such an impact on David. I mean, they were great friends. They worked on songs together. Fame, the song Fame, which, by the way, folks, is, and I know Count Mozart put that in like one of the Vogue episodes with Ezell, with all the models, but that was really about how the manager that I just mentioned screwed him over. It was called Main Man Management, and David thought he had a part of it, and typical manager, took all the money. David's running around. He's broke.
Right. And
broke.
I think John Lennon told him to get rid of him.
Yeah. John Lennon said, hey, man, get rid of this guy and then work it out. And he did. He gave him he got out of his contract, David did, with DeFreeze, and he, made a little deal with him, and then, boom, he moves on. Right. And then, David just, you can't beat him, man. And he did make a couple that just didn't hit the mark, records. But back in those days, everyone, things were different back then. Record companies gave artists a lot more leeway to become who they are. And it's just a different time. You know what I mean? There was a lot of experimental things going on. Society was different,
Yes.
Right, Bella?
Yeah.
And David was just this amazing individual. And let me tell you something. He really did just keep recreating things, different kinds of music, the Young Americans and all this kind of thing. You know, he got back to his blues, that kind of background. He really loved the blues, like, you know, Little Richard. I want to do a show on Little Richard, by the way.
Right.
Little Richard was amazing.
Yeah,
and he loved Little
great
Richard.
Influence,
And by the way, I mean, look at Little Richard. You know, he was very androgynous too. You know, he was a black man, but he was, you know, with makeup on and, you know.
Ready, set, go, man, go.
Little Richard was different from every other performer on the music scene. His androgynous, almost effeminate looks and sexually suggestive lyrics made him more outlandish and more subversive than any of his contemporaries. Young David Jones found the combination both fascinating and inspiring.
I wanted to be a white Little Richard at 8.
Yeah, I think he was one of the first ones that really influenced David, you know?
Absolutely. And it's funny how David had to change that name to David Bowie, and he got the name Bowie from the man James Bowie, who was this American, they call him a patriot and everything, but he died at the Alamo.
Oh, really?
He was sick back then. So when the Mexicans came, I think he was in bed. It wasn't hard to kill him. But when he was younger, he was, he was a tough guy, and he would get into these fights. And so he was known for, he used the knife a couple times. He was a real patriotic kind of guy. And then they called it the Bowie knife. And so, David knew about this. People from other countries really know about history a lot.
Right.
And there was already a Davy Jones. I don't know if you know who Davy Jones is. Do you know? Davy Jones.
One of the monkeys.
Good for you. I love that Davy Jones, by the way. I love the monkeys.
Do you know that David Bowie was a great, he would read so much, he can read a book in a day. Yeah. And
he was a reader.
Yes, he was a reader.
Did you see that there was a report on him one time where when he wanted to write a song, he would just cut pieces out of magazines and reports and things like that, and he would just paste them together and create a song. Really stream of consciousness kind of thing.
Right.
That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
But getting back to that Space Oddity, it was great because that was one of the first songs that came out. Here's that Count Mozart jumping around again. But it came out, like you said, when the man landed on the moon for the Americans in '69, and then it disappeared. But he would come back with hit after hit after hit. I mean, this guy was amazing.
Yes, yes, he was.
And then he used the kind of his sexuality. Now, Bella, I want to ask you this. When he would come out and say, he would make these proclamations of his what's the word I want to use? His sexuality.
Right.
His preference in sexuality. He would make an announcement. Now, was that publicity, or was that the real deal? What do you think?
Yeah, I feel it was like publicity.
I agree.
Because he would go back and forth, right?
He did. I'm this one day, and then I'm that, and then I'm this. He was pretty shrewd, though. Shrewd guy. Speaking of being shrewd, you know what I want to do? We did it with Jim Morrison, and I'm feeling it tonight. I feel David's here. So I want to just relax a little bit here, Bella, and I'm going to start calling on David Bowie.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's never been done before. Just like our other episodes, we're gonna invoke David Bowie.
Oh yes,
we're gonna bring him back.
Let's do that.
I mean, he's here with our music. You play the music, you can feel him. So I'm gonna call David and see if he wants to join the Count Mozart show, and and maybe it'd be great. You read his horoscope.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we went over that earlier, right?
Yes.
So I think that would be really great if you do that. So
I love the idea.
Let's dim the lights a little bit, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
We're gonna do that. Bella, here I go. Okay, I'm gonna start calling on David right now. I said, let me really be serious here for a moment. David, this is Count Mozart. We're doing the show. We'd love for you to join us. Bella and I are here. We're talking to the world and all of our warm-blooded ones and all your fans. We would love for you to join the Count Mozart show tonight. We're calling on you, David. David Bowie. David Bowie. David Bowie.
David Bowie.
David Bowie.
Hello, darling. I'm here.
Hello, David.
It's a wonderful night to be here with you. I love your show, by the way, and it's a real pleasure for me to be joining you.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you.
Thank you, love. So, what have you summoned me here tonight for?
Yes, we want to talk to you about you, and first I want to read for you about your horoscope, the day you were born.
My dates of birth. I love it. I'm a Capricorn, you know.
Yes, you were born January 8th. What year was that?
You tell me.
1947.
I don't like to give away my age, darling.
Nobody does.
Well, I'm ready and willing. Ready for you.
Okay, so this is what I have for you. You are self-reliant, shrewd, dependable, and being intuitive.
Oh, lovely.
Can easily detect deception in others. You love music, art, and sports, outdoor sports. You will always enjoy excellent health and should live to a ripe old age.
Oh, you got most of it right, love.
Okay.
Listen, that was beautiful, and you know what? It really matched me. I will say that it is a pleasure to be here. That was a beautiful reading, Bela. You know, you're very good. I did watch the Jim Morrison one, and you know what? I'm in good company here.
Oh, yes, you are.
I'm very happy to be here, love.
Well, we're so happy that you're here.
You know, everyone, I want you all to follow the Cat Mozart show. You know, this is David Bowie telling you, trust me when I tell you that these guys are just wonderful, and all of us in the afterlife are watching them, and we love them. Because why? I mean, Bela, you're bringing us back to life. In a way, you know, you're continuing our legacy by doing the show, you and the Count. And, you know, I appreciate it. Jim appreciates it. And I'm sure there's going to be more. But, ladies and gentlemen, we love the Cat Mozart show. Thank you, Bela.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, I want to say I do miss my lovely wife, Iman. You know, I'm thinking of her all the time, my beautiful daughter. And I miss all the fans, and I miss all the people of the world. I love you very much. And I will always be with you as long as you listen to my music and follow, you know, the world that I want you to follow is nothing but love and respect for one another, and just, you know what, peace. Be peaceful to one another and love one another. Right, Bela?
Absolutely.
Great. So you know what, love, I think I better go now. This was a wonderful time spent with you, and, you know, call me back sometime.
Oh, we will.
Have a beautiful chat.
Thank you for stopping by.
You're welcome, Bela. Thank you, love. Thank you for all this, and, everyone, I love you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bela, that was dynamite. You know?
That was great.
I cannot believe that. This guy was, you know, we invoked David Bowie.
Oh, yes.
You know what? I loved it. This is, you know, this show's getting better and better, to tell you the truth. I'm loving what I saw between you and David. It's kind of like the Count and David, really, you know, because it's like an out-of-body experience.
Right, yes it is.
It's gotta happen. But you know what? What else do you want to say about David? Because, you know, what can you, what?
Yeah, I have an interesting fact. Do you know one of a lock of his hair was sold for $18,750 back in June. A few months after June 26, after a few months that he passed away.
Yeah, he passed away. You know. You know what? You know why? They probably want to clone him. Somebody with a, you know, with, you know, probably a medical person got a hold of his hair and want to clone David Bowie.
I know.
You know what? I saw this wonderful show on Iman, and she's up in the Catskills. They got this beautiful home that, you know, David and her built.
We built this house almost 6 years ago, and we built it from scratch. And then David loved white birch trees. The place is surrounded with white birches. This is my living room with the most beautiful mountain view. One of the most important parts of this whole house, obviously my husband, David Bowie. And this is his first self-portrait that he did in 1980. I had a hard time staying here. I will come here for a weekend and leave the next day because I felt very sad here because I missed him so much. The house actually helped me go through my grief and come the other side. And that is what's so special to me about this house. Now, I mean, when I remember David, I don't cry anymore. I actually remember the joyful life. And I feel like when I look at his eyes and I move around the house, it's like that, it's following me.
And, you know, she misses him. You know, imagine, every single day, she misses him, loves this guy. You know, she's a cool woman.
No, she said that she was never gonna marry again.
No, she won't.
Because she said she's like...
Devastated.
That was
the man. You know what? Good for her. You know what? I give that woman a lot of respect. And by the way, I'm going to ask Azel what he thinks about David and Iman. And right now, let's turn to Azel and see what he has to say about David. Okay?
Yes.
All right, let's get him in. Now let's ask Azel about his David Bowie experience.
Well, I did shake his hand one time. I was at the Marquee, and we got backstage actually, and he came along, and I said, "Oh, it was great, David." And I got to shake his hand, but that was the only time I ever really met him, which is kind of unfortunate because I used to work with Brian Duffy, who had done the Aladdin Sane album cover. He had done the Ashes to Ashes one, and I knew his wife Iman. I mean, they weren't married when I used to do her hair, but I did her hair a bunch of times. But the really good Ashes to Ashes story is that there was this club in London called the Blitz, which was famous for the New Romantics, Steve Strange, all of those guys. And it was basically an homage to David Bowie. So he goes there one night, and and everyone's like dumbfounded and can't believe it. And he goes upstairs and he hangs out and he leaves, and then he makes Ashes to Ashes. And the video, it all features all the Blitz kids, Steve Strange, all of those guys. They're all in it. So he kind of copied what was an homage to him and becomes even more famous for it. I mean, but that was what was great about Bowie. He was such an innovator. I mean, no artist ever changed their music style. He did soul music, he did rock and roll, he did everything. Most people just stuck to one thing, but he did many things. That, I think, what made him a genius. I remember the day he died, I'd gone to a bar near where I live, and I'm standing outside, and the place next door is playing a Bowie tune, and the woman is walking down the street, lip-syncing it. And it's just me, her, and the music, and I was just like, "Oh, there's a Bowie moment for you, right?"
Now, this Iman, you know, she's such a sweetheart. I mean, real, and she's, you know what, she's got that energy too. You know, you when you were doing her hair, and this is prior to her and David getting together, correct?
Yeah.
How was she? She was just as nice as she comes across, or was she?
I mean, the thing about her is that's how she really looks. Forget hair and makeup. That's how she is. When you see her down the street, she stands out. Yeah, she was always really, really nice to me. I never had a hard time with her at all. So sometimes, you know, they got a thing about white people doing people of colour's hair, and she always turned up, and you could always do what you wanted, and it always worked. So
great lady.
Yeah, and she's
and by the way, they really, really loved each other. Like, you know, she's like, "I'll never marry another man. This was my man." You know, she said when he walk into the room, she still got that feeling, man.
And I knew where they lived. They lived in Soho, and I remember again when he passed, we'd gone down, and there was all flowers outside, and it was so pretty. You know what I mean?
Very sad.
Yeah.
But you know what? That Aladdin Sane, you mentioned that album. You know what that was? It was a play off of the words, right?
Right.
Aladdin Sane. You got it. Now we're gonna get back into this David Bowie episode, but you know we have to hear from Azel because you know he has a good Bowie story. So.
Yeah, and I met him. I met him at least. You know what I mean? No, it was sad when he passed.
I know you, man.
Yeah, he was a really prolific musician, I think.
Yeah, it's true. No, there's only one Bowie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't think of anyone else that goes anywhere near it.
Just like there's only one Azel.
Yeah, right.
So that was great. You know, Azel has a lot of wonderful stories, and you know, he really was close with people who worked with David, and that's what he's talking about right there. Excellent little clip right there. Yeah, you know what? But let me tell you something. He really hit the mainstream with that "Let's Dance." You know, that thing went stratospheric for David.
Yes.
I mean, he really went mainstream a little bit, but you know, not really. I mean, it's like pop music, but you know, isn't something like Diamond Dogs or Young Americans? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, people always have something to say.
Right.
How about it's just a cool song? Modern Love, China Girl,
Oh yeah.
Ricochet.
Amazing songs.
You know, I just love that David Bowie,
Yeah.
and I did love all the changes and the hair changes. and
Yeah,
the look,
me
and,
too.
man, those suits, and then he got very fashionable. You know, well, he's always fashionable.
Right,
he was
right,
always
right.
in the fashion, even like when he was a
always put a
kid.
different statement. You know?
Yeah, even his friends, his young, his school friends would say, "Oh my God, he was Mr. Fashion." You know, he loved fashion, and like you said, and then he was an artist.
I saw the amazing art.
Amazing
I mean,
art.
great. I mean, those pieces of art, amazing.
Wonderful. I think that's, he wasn't a collector of like cars and things like that. He wasn't like one of those rock stars, but he loved art.
Yes.
So he'd get really nice pieces of art,
And the way he painted, that was amazing.
Yeah. And he was something else, right?
Yes.
What else, any
No, it was
other
an interesting. It was like actually in 2019, they got a Barbie doll, a Ziggy Stardust Barbie was created
Wonderful.
to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Space Oddity.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
That's how much impact he had.
Yes.
But that Ziggy Stardust really did. It was a real knockout punch, because people love that flamboyancy and they love that, those characters, when you create something like that, it's just so memorable when you look at the pictures. It's like a cartoon character, or like a superhero.
Right.
One or the other, however we want to say it.
That's true.
You defy all logic by doing something like that. Yes. And then later on, he still, he collaborated with people. He worked with so many great people. Like I said, John Lennon, and things like that. 9 Inch Nails, that Trent Reznor, he did a show with him. And we'd go out on the road. He's like, look, I'm gonna get killed out here, because 9 Inch Nails was very popular at the time. He goes, yeah, but I need to do this. That's who he was.
Yes.
He was like.
And I think he was a very good father. He tried to, be a good father for his son when he divorced the wife. He took over that boy.
He was a great guy. Yeah, and he got rid of his addictions. He battled all that. And by the way, we're skipping over something very important. Also, he was a wonderful actor.
It's a fantastic movie about power, space, time, and the visitor. David Bowie stars in The Man Who Fell to Earth.
You are a famous actress.
I am not unknown.
You must display yourself for a living, then, like I did.
That is not myself, Mr. Merrick. That is an illusion. Oh, this. This is myself.
This is myself, too.
Oh, yes, he was also a great actor.
Broadway,
yes.
And The Man Who Fell to Earth. Maybe he did The Elephant Man.
He did The Elephant Man. Amazing.
He was, he was something else.
Yes.
Very
talented.
And when he left the Earth, that was. And they all have to go. We all have to go, ladies and gentlemen, except for Count Mozart. But you know what I'm talking about. It happens. And the good thing is they leave you with such wonderful work.
It's a legacy,
I always go back to this Iman, because she's a real cool woman. If you hear her talk, and she's the real deal. Smart, like with, you know what I mean? Like the way she talks and the way she handles herself.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why they fell in love, and she's such a wonderful woman, It's just, you could just imagine, what she goes through, because this man was, and she'd say, you'd walk into the room, man, and she still got, her heart fluttered, you know what I mean? He had that ability to do that.
He claims that he knew immediately I was the one. It took me maybe a week. David swept me off my feet, and I'm still off my feet. He has managed somehow, I don't know, miraculously, to have my heart flutter when he walks into the room still. So, yes, he's definitely the one. He's definitely my one.
Even with the troubles that he had with his family. I think schizophrenia ran in that family.
Yes, but the brother.
Poor Terry was his name. Terry, and he loved him.
He loved that brother
well, he had
so much.
he had a big impact on David's life, and he'd always race back whenever he had troubles, and David was always worried about he would go that route.
Right.
That's probably why he got self-destructive a little bit in those times, just out of maybe fear or sadness,
of course.
Something. But he got out of it. Hallelujah. But we do miss him, ladies and gentlemen. We miss this David Bowie. We tonight we're, of course, like always, when we're doing these shows, I don't know, I'm going to fill you on a little secret. The Count Mozart show, when we are doing a show or an upcoming show on an artist, we immerse ourselves in that music. We live David Bowie. It is when I arise, I'm listening to David Bowie. When I'm drinking my blood, it's David Bowie. When I'm talking with Bela, what about you? Same thing, right?
Oh, yes.
You listening to...
I feel the vibe present.
And you feel the presence. And, well, that's what happens, because now, we're presenting him to the world. We're keeping his, his legacy alive.
Yes, we are.
Not that he needs it, but with generation to generation, this is what it's all about. It's sharing the love. And because you know what? Like we've said before, there will never be another one. Never. I mean, this guy he'd be in a studio and they'd be recording something and it was missing something. And say the last artists were in there and left like anything, a xylophone, what's that thing you squeeze?
The accordion.
The accordion. And he'd say, let's put the accordion on. And the group would say, that's never going to work. It's stupid. And then they'd be like, oh my God, he was right. It worked. That's who he was.
Right.
So, folks, celebrate this David Bowie and just, Bela, any other little tips or, little fun facts about David that you have over there? I think you said a lot. I love the part about the Barbie doll. The Barbie doll.
Yeah,
wow.
That's great.
We're going to have to find that little freak and put her in here. Put her on the desk. You know what? Yeah, I will. Well, look for that little freak. It's probably like $1,000 or something like that.
It's worth a lot of money now.
But anyway, and by the way, his ex-wife is still alive too. So
Jeez.
Angie and of
she
course
has a daughter that very talented.
Well,
daughter.
with Iman,
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
she's still very heartbroken. I know I keep saying that, but I think about her. Just because it must be David. Because I'm doing this thing and I think about her. I think about her a lot. Angie was cool, but she was a part of the they didn't get along.
Right.
That wasn't. They were meant to be.
Just for a reason.
For a reason, and I think the son will understand. He probably agrees with that too.
Right.
And then Iman is, of course, that was the love of his life.
Yes. Yes,
and then
I
when he
think
left,
so.
and by the way, he left with a wonderful video and music too. When he left, and he left this earth, the Starman left.
Right.
But you know what? He never really has. He's with us, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? I just want to say I love David Bowie, and he's a part of the Count Mozart show now.
Yes, I think so.
And as always, ladies and gentlemen, give your suggestions if there's an artist or something special. You know what? Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a poet. Maybe it's an artist. A painter, a writer. Let's expand. But tonight's about David Bowie, David Jones. We love you all. We shall return.
We promise.
We promise. Go listen to that David Bowie and feel that magic. There's only one. David Bowie. Ziggy Stardust. Thin White Duke. How many more? How many more titles did he have? Just an amazing man. You know what he was? He's a wonderful father and a wonderful husband. David Bowie. We love you all. Good night, everybody. Good night.